Have you ever noticed that when you go through excessive amounts of training to stop yourself from being scared, you may end up not learning a damn thing by the end? Well, that's what Lincoln and Clyde found out in the episode I'm going to talk about today. So join me as I, SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, bring you another retro review from past seasons of The Loud House. Cue the intro. Today's episode is Jeers for Fears. In this episode, Lincoln and Clyde try to toughen themselves up after agreeing to go to the Royal Woods House of Terror with Chandler. There's only one word I can use to describe this episode: ridiculous. This had to be one of the most ridiculous Lincoln and Clyde episodes of the entire series. These two are presented as totally and completely scared of just about anything. Even when Bobby puts his hands on their shoulders, even though they already knew he was with them the entire time. When getting scared becomes the running gag of the episode, it stops being funny and it becomes so aggravating. This was all instigated when Chandler was teasing these two about being the biggest chickens in their class, and as we saw as the episode progressed, he was not wrong. So Lincoln and Clyde tried to get Chandler to stop his bullying by agreeing to go to the Royal Woods House of Terror with him and his friends, and that's when they turned to Lucy for help. Even though I really liked the creepy visuals during the first round of her scare training and how her sisters did a pretty good job of trying to scare the boys, it's Lincoln and Clyde who make this entire training montage utterly useless. Lucy kept dialing back the fear levels with each passing round, even to the point where just opening her coffin was considered scary, and yet these two guys were still frightened as if nothing had changed. Yeah, it's not hard to see why this episode went south really fast. Another detriment was when the boys found out all the employees at the House of Terror were fired and management had to completely change the layout of the building to make it 10 times scarier. Mrs. Bernardo, one of the house workers, said it was because Lincoln and Clyde took a tour of the building earlier in the day and didn't find anything scary. Well, no crap, because Bobby was showing them around since he used to work there. He gave them a private tour to show them how everything they use in the House of Terror is all special effects. Of course no one is going to find the place scary when it's daytime and all the props are being pointed out. This sudden change to the House of Terror would have been more justified if no one was getting scared during normal nighttime business hours, but it's at this point the episode took its biggest and worst turn. Because Lincoln and Clyde had no idea what was going to be in store for them by the time they went into the house with Chandler, they quickly reverted back to being totally scared of everything they encountered. Bobby's tour was supposed to teach them that there's nothing to be afraid of and how everything in the House of Terror is fake, but apparently these two didn't learn that lesson whatsoever. Seriously, they wanted to find the bailout door not even a full minute after going inside, and yet they surprisingly made their way through the entire house. However, that doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't make them brave because they're still the same kids at the end of the episode as they were in the beginning. They effectively learned nothing and therefore didn't conquer their own fears. It's sad to say there were only two character moments I really liked, but they didn't involve the two main characters, at least not directly. First, as much as I didn't like Chandler earlier in the series, let alone at the start of this episode, I will say Jeers for Fears was as good as it was going to get for his character. He and his friends admit they were too scared to finish going through the House of Terror, and that's why they took the bailout door. They thought Lincoln and Clyde were a lot braver than they were, and were worried they'd tell their classmates about them chickening out. However, Clink and McCloud decide to spare Chandler and his friends from humiliation, and Chandler actually apologizes for messing with them and invites them to Gus's. I always saw this episode as a pivotal moment for Chandler's character because it really looked as though he was turning over a new leaf and actually wanted to be friends with Lincoln and Clyde. Of course, that idea is quickly forgotten once season 5 begins, but on the merits of this episode alone, this was still a good moment for Chandler. And finally, the award for cutest character moment goes to Lily wearing her wolf jammies and letting out an adorable howl. When you realize she was the best thing to come out of that training montage next to Lynn dressing up as a chainsaw-wielding maniac, I think that really says a lot about the characters who were supposed to benefit in the long run from said montage. Overall, this episode is simply ridiculous and insanely aggravating. Lincoln and Clyde go through so much training in learning to not be scared, and yet they're back to square one by the end. It's always frustrating when a character who's supposed to learn a lesson, or at least grow a little bit in the aftermath of their adventure never ends up doing so. We also had the typical conflict where the school bully berates his victims for being scared, and then it turns out he's just as scared as they are, thus humbling himself by the end. At the very least, I can appreciate that, no matter how rushed it might be. Still, the fact Chandler had a bigger moment of development than the guys he was picking on is a very damning indictment about the lead characters. It's also very damning when you notice how even a squirrel Lincoln and Clyde had befriended during the episode can scare the ever-loving daylights out of them when it teamed up with a crow. Animals 1, humans 0. But aside from some very nice looking visuals when it came to the creepy designs of the monsters in the House of Terror, it's no wonder this is considered the worst scary themed episode of the series. With that said, I give Jeers for Fears a 3.8 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Jeers for Fears. So I gotta ask, what did you guys think of this episode? Sound off in the comments below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more Loud House related content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.